And we're back. Brian Giles with Brian Giles MTG. And we're going through more Lord of the Rings spoilers. So, now we're up to the red cards. We're going to start off with Battle Scarred Goblin. A red and 1 for a 2/2 Goblin Warrior. Whenever a Battle Scarred Goblin becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to each creature blocking it. Then we have Book of Marzabul. A red and 2 for a enchantment saga that reads Chapter 1, a Massworks 1. Chapter 2, a Massworks 2. Chapter 3, creatures you control get +1/+0, gain menace until end of turn. That's scary. Next up we have Breaking of the Fellowship. A red and 1 for a sorcery that reads target creature an opponent controls deals damage equal to its power to another target creature that player controls. Your creatures fight each other. Your opponent's creatures fight each other. That's an interesting fight spell. Next up we have Cast into the Fire. A red and 1 for an instant that reads choose 1. Either Cast into the Fire deals 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures. Exile target artifact. Next up we have Display of Power. 2 red and 1 for an instant read. This spell can't be copied. Copy any number of target instant or sorcery spells. You may choose new targets for the copies. Next up we have Éomer, Marshal of Rohan. 2 red and 2 for a 4/4 legendary human knight with haste. Whenever 1 or more other attacking legendary creatures you control die, untap all creatures you control after this phase in an additional combat phase. Then we have Éomer of the Rittermark. A red and 4 for a 5/4 legendary human knight with haste. Whenever Éomer of Rittermark attacks, you control a creature with greater power than creatures on the battlefield. Create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. That's pretty cool. Then we have Erebor Flamesmith. Red and 1 for a 2/1 dwarf artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Erebor Flamesmith deals 1 damage to each opponent. Ouch. Then we have Erkenbrand, Lord of the Westfold. A red and 3 for a 3/3 legendary human soldier. Whenever Erkenbrand, Lord of the Westfold, or another human enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+0 till end of turn. Yummy! Then we have Fall of Caer Andros. A red and 2 for an enchantment that reads, whenever a creature an opponent controls will deal excess combat damage amassed at Orcs X, where X is that excess damage. Yeah, trample deck. Except we have Fear Fire Foes. A red and X for sorcerer that reads, damage can't be prevented this turn. Fear Fire Foes deals X damage to target creature and 1 damage to each other creature with the same controller. Yoo-hoo. Next up we have Fiery Inscription. A red and 2 enchantment that reads, Fiery Inscription enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Fire Inscription deals 2 damage to each opponent. Oof, Spellslinger deck. That's going to feel good in the morning. Next up we have Fire of Orthanc. A red and 3 for sorcerer that reads, destroy target artifact or land. Creatures without flying can't block this turn. Ow. Next up we have Foray of Orcs. Red and 3 for sorcery. The Massworks 2. When you do Foray of Orcs, deals X damage to target creature and opponent controls. X is the amassed army's power. Okay. Then we have Gimli, Counter of Kills. A red and 3 for a 4/3 legendary dwarf warrior with trample. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, Gimli counter kill deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. Yeah, ouch. Next up we have Gimli's Axe. A red and 2 for an artifact equipment that reads equipped creature gets +3/+0. As long as the equipped creature is legendary, has menace, and you equip it for 2. You put that on Gimli. He's a 7/3 trample menace. Oh, that's gonna hurt. Next up, we have Gimli's Fury. A red and 1. Instant read, target creature gets +3/+2 until end of turn. It's legendary. It also gains trample till end of turn. Yikes! That can that can be ugly. Yeah. Make Gimli with his axe into a 10/5. you gotta feel that. Next up, we have Glowing Dwarf Emissary, a red and 2 for a 3/3 legendary dwarf advisor. When you cast a historic spell, create a treasure token. Ability triggers once each turn. So artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic. Tap it, sacrifice the treasures, go target creature. So definitely something for your commander deck. Then we have Goblin Fire Leaper. A red and 1 for a 1/1 Goblin Warrior. Pay a red and 1. Goblin Fire Leaper gets +1/+0 till end of turn. Goblin Fire Leaper dies, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature an opponent controls. Ew. Pumpable. And it does all sorts of nasty things after it dies. Now. So next up we have Grishnok Brash Instigator. A red and 2 for a 1/1 legendary goblin soldier. Grishnok Brash Instigator enters the battlefield. Mass Orcs 2. When you do, till end of turn, gain control target non-legendary creature and opponent controls with power less than equal to the amassed army's power. Untap that creature, gains haste till end of turn. Excuse me. That's gonna hurt. Next up we have Radram Spearmaster. A red and 2 for a 2/3 human warrior with reach. Beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gets +1/+0 till end of turn. A red creature with reach is not something you see too often. Next up we have Hugh the Intwood. 2 red and 3 for Sorcerer that reads, sacrifice any number of lands and reveal the top X card of your library. X is the number of lands sacrificed this way. Choose any number of artifact and or land cards revealed this way. Put all non-land cards chosen this way onto the battlefield. And put all land cards chosen this way onto the battlefield. Tap. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. Ouch. Next up we have Improvised Club. Red and 1 for an instant that reads, an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or a creature. The Improvised Club deals 4 damage to any target. That's going to feel good. Next up we have Moria Marauder. 2 red for a 1/1 Goblin Warrior with double strike. Remember, Goblin Orc you control deals combat damage to a player. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Sheesh. Next up we have Oliphant. A beefy red and 5 for a 6/4 elephant with trample. Whenever Oliphant attacks, another target creature control gets 2+0 gains trample till end of turn, and it mountain cycles for 1. Next up, we have Olokai Crusher. A red and 3 for a 4/4 troll soldier with trample. Olokai Crusher can't block unless you control a goblin or orc. Okay. Next up, we have Quarrel's End. A red and 2 for a sorcerer that reads an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card. Draw 2 cards and create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Excuse me. Next up, we have Rally at the Hornburg. A red and 1 for sorcerer that reads create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. Humans can control gain haste until end of turn. Okay, I can live with that. Then we have Ranger's Firebrand. A single red mana for a sorcerer that reads Ranger's Firebrand deals 2 damage to any target, and the ring tempts you. Next up, we have Relentless Rohirrim. Red and 3 for a 4/3 human knight. Relentless Rohirrim enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Next up, we have Rising of the Day. Red and 2 for enchantment of the reads creatures you control have haste. Legendary creatures you control get +1/+0. Yeah. Then we have Rohirrim Lancer. Single red mana for a 1/1 human knight with menace. When Rohirrim Lancer dies, the ring tempts you. Then we have Rush the Room. A red mana for an instant that reads target creature gains +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. If it's a goblin or orc, he also gains haste until end of turn. Then we have Smite the Deathless. A red and 1 for an instant that reads Smite the Deathless deals 3 damage to target creature. If that creature loses indestructible till end of turn, that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. How to get rid of your Witch King of Anmar. Next up is another card that's been talked about a lot. Spiteful Banditry. 2 red and X for enchantment of the reason. Spiteful Banditry enters the battlefield. It deals X damage to each creature. Whenever one or more creatures under your opponent's control die, you create a treasure token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Yeah. More treasure tokens. Next up, we have the Swarming of Moria. A red and 2 for sorcerer that reads create a treasure token. Then a mass works 2. Next up is a card that I like a lot, and I'm glad they made the inclusion of this. And if you can make this thing go off, it is incredibly powerful. You have There and Back Again. 2 red and 3 for us. Enchantment Saga that reads Chapter 1. Up to 1 target creature can't block for as long as you control There and Back Again. Chapter 2. Search your library for a mountain, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Chapter 3. This thing is dope. Create Smog. A legendary 6/6 red dragon creature token with flying and haste. And when this creature dies, create 14 treasure tokens. Can you say Zorn, anyone? Oh, look, I just created 28 treasure tokens. Well, I'm going to cast a whole bunch of shit. That card is... If you can make that card go off, that's just it's gonna do nasty things. Next up, we have War Beast of Gora Gora. A red and 4 for a 5/4 beast. Whenever War Beast of Gora Gora or another creature you control with power 4 greater dies, Mass Works 2. Well, that's definitely interesting. So that's the red cards. I'm gonna end it here, and we're gonna move on to our next video where we feature the green card.